My name's Garrett Swindell. I'm the programmer behind Computer Repair Simulator. What I'd like to talk about in this video is a few different things. First thing is that Computer Repair Simulator, the beta version, is now available on our website at computer-repair-simulator.com. That is the release that we will be testing for some basic items, which include everything from using the game launcher to configuring buttons, setting game options, video options, audio options, things like that. So I'm going to cover those as we walk through this video. Another item I'd like to talk about is what is Computer Repair Simulator. So just for everyone out there who's not aware or has not played the Computer Repair Simulator game yet, it is a video game, or it is a teaching tool. It is a software package that will allow players, students, teachers, professors, all to enter this virtual world and interact with electronic assemblies. And when I say that, it's a very broad range. And this is also going to incorporate real-world experiences as a field technician who might be in telecommunications or networking or audio and video. As you go through the game, you're going to learn very important things about electronics, methods, laws, things like that, and you're going to use your skills as you progress to get into more difficult situations. But they are going to be based upon real life experiences, excuse me, and it's going to teach the player, whoever's starting, the fundamentals of everything ranging from computers, that's desktops, laptops, microcomputers, cell phones, TVs, set-top boxes, things you would find in a residential environment. There's a lot of people who play this game, and they're tinkers. They like to tweak their network switch at home or their Wi-Fi and things like that. This game is going to cover all of those in the hardware and software realm. It's not only going to stop there. It's going to go more into the commercial market where excuse me, you will be going on site to fix things related to maybe copper or fiber cabling, couplers, patch panels, racks and cabinets, server installation, access to those servers, remote access, operating systems, things like that. You're going to be faced with throughout this software. Now, not all of this is complete today. However, the fundamentals, the modular game and the base structure is there today to allow this to be built upon what is currently available. So without further ado, just sitting here looking at this image, let's go take a look. I'm going to show you everything from start to finish, where I'm at. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did with the software, just things that might be of interest to any game developers out there who are just starting to learn. And hopefully it'll cover some of the things that you've maybe thought about or wondered about, or maybe just you're interested in playing the game or bug testing. So this video is also going to help with people having issues. I did the best I could to allow for a more streamlined gameplay, so I'm not trying to clutter up the screen or make it busy. I'm trying to make it so the user can easily navigate through the software. If there's any feedback on that area, I would be very curious and interested to hear that, just because I'd like to just improve the game based upon the user feedback. Alright, so let's get started. So I just did some compiling this morning, and on the website is the release. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start the installation and kind of show you what we're looking at. So I created a compiler to install Computer Repair Simulator on a Windows-based machine. There's support for 64-bit and also 32-bit. We do not support Linux or Mac operating system as of today. However, the future releases will. It's a real pain to compile all of this, and I just want to make sure the code structure is there. The concept's good. So when you open up the game, after you download it from our website onto the downloads page, you're going to open it up, and of course our software is not verified with Microsoft, so it's going to show you a prompt. just means nothing more than it's not recognized by Microsoft as a software that has been reviewed by them and other people are actually using. So I'm going to run it, and it's the welcome message for the installer. You have additional options here if you'd like to create your desktop shortcuts or your start menu shortcuts. It'll also give you information about how large the file is. So just want to wait till this goes. Sorry about that, I just want to make sure it was still recording. This is going to be version 1. It's a public release. That means everyone and anyone can beat the crap out of my code and see if they can find any issues. Of course, there's this little cutoff here. That's going to be something I'm going to fix. It's just very minor. But it's telling me that the installation is complete. So I'm going to launch the Computer Repair Simulator launcher, and it's going to give me a message here that says welcome to the game. This is a process that starts initially when you first install the game that creates and registers a serial number that is very unique to you. It's almost impossible, I want to say it is impossible for somebody to have the same serial number, just because it's based upon an algorithm I came up with that actually takes the second, the minute, the hour, the day, the month, the week, the year, those values along with some other random values to generate this unique serial key. The serial key is then used to process a CD key, which will unlock more features within the game and allow people to kind of work as I release versions. If you have if you purchase the CD key, then you will be able to get that first. You'll actually be able to get the gameplay first, whereas others who have the free version will not be privy to that until it's publicly released, or it's something that's within the free version scope. So as we go through here, one thing I want to mention: if you open the game for the first time and you do not see this little pop-up that says welcome to Computer Repair Simulator, it's probably because you're running a 32-bit install or a game of Computer Repair Simulator on a 64-bit computer. I can tell you right now that if that's the case, you will not see this pop up, and then you'll be missing buttons like the play button and a few other things. So if that's the case, make sure you pick the right version for download for a Windows computer. So the next screen is going to talk about instructions on how to set this up. There are ways to take the serial key that I have just been generated. I can take this key and I can go get a CD key, which allows me to enter my serial number and then a ticket number. This ticket number is something that I will provide to people who purchase the game to get a CD key to unlock all the features, or it's going to be available soon through the website as an option just to purchase that license. Like I said, once you have the license, it's good for everything going forward. Anything that's new, you're going to have options and features within the game that the free version will not have. So it's a little more advanced. And the only reason why is because this is a non-funded project. It's just all inside time. Several people are involved. I'm the main guy working on code. I probably put the most time into this project. So like I said, it's a non-funded project, so support is greatly appreciated to keep this project alive. So I'm going to close this window because I'm not going to request a CD key. However, I can just at this point say play free, and it's going to say you're going to overwrite the default key, which is perfectly okay because it's a new installation, and then it's going to ask me to restart. The reason why it's going to ask me to restart is because the play button is still missing. So if I go and just quit and I run it again, you'll now see that the game is registered as a free version, and I now have a play button up here that I can start a game on. So let me just cover a little bit about the software, and this is more for bug testers. So what I did on this is this launcher is designed to allow the user to change the preferences and configurations of the gameplay, the graphics, the audio, things like that, prior to loading the actual game. This gives a developer a huge benefit in the fact that you can create one launcher for many games, because most of the time the controls are very much the same along with some of the options. So you're not locked down to a project with the launcher. You can keep using it. The second item is because it's just easier to manage a more modular game, and removes code from the actual gameplay, which really increases performance and reliability of that code. So that's one thing that the alpha version, that's one thing we learned from the alpha version, is that we must build it right and have the proper code structure in place, or a good foundation to continue the game. Otherwise, what you're going to end up with is a bunch of bugs that are so difficult and intertwined with the entire code structure that it's going to be almost impossible to fix without a lot of time. So on the main page you have your updates. This will be available to everyone. You can see this is kind of like my developer update log, and we're operating as Copperhead Studio. It's an LLC, which I will soon have. It's going to be a software company. Also on the page there's a link to the website if you want to go to the website. It takes you there. Also, it will tell you if the main computer repair simulator server is online or offline. Your versioning, the information here is coming from a remote server, so it's basically like a web page, but this will allow you to determine where you're at in regards to your versioning. If you ever want to update your CD key, you can click that again and go back. That way you can start off as free play, and then later on, if you decide you want to invest and support us, then you'll be able to do so at that time. Alright, so some minor things. Let me just cover the minor things. Credits. I have a credits button here. It will launch an application that basically just goes through who was all involved in the game. Special thanks to people that were helping with this project and who still are, and a few other suppliers and vendors as well. So I'm not going to let you sit there and get bored watching my credits. You can watch it on your own time. But then there's other options on this page, such as sign up. The sign up option is going to be a way for you to create an account when the online version becomes available. I also want to make mention here that I put a lot of time and effort into making sure the password was fully protected. I am using a special encryption method, which is actually viewed as a very common practice in this type of software, which basically, as soon as you enter your password here, it is encrypted and it can never be decrypted. It can only be compared against when using the proper key algorithm. So on the server, on the remote server where this information is stored, your password will not be legible, nor will it not be, it cannot be broken down and deciphered. So just a note. So going back, we have an online user manual in case you want to kind of peruse through some of the game options if you get stuck, or maybe an explanation of what's going on. I spent a lot of time on this to just kind of explain some of the options and some of the things that I missed in alpha. So like you can even go down and it talks about the game debug commands, and these debug commands can be entered during gameplay to change game options in real time. It's also a way for you to interact with the game engine and figure out what's going on. Also, I have instructions for reporting bugs, which is pretty important for the bug testers who are working on this. Just send me an email, Garrett@GarrettWaveman.com. Please include the debug file, which when you install your game folder will look like this. And if you go to the logs folder, there's a logdebug.html file. If we open this file, the nice part about it is I can see everything that basically happened during the gameplay, and I can also get your system metrics and diagnose and troubleshoot the bug. I also have it set for CPU ticks. Not CPU ticks, but game ticks. These ticks will tell me pretty much every frame. So before the first frame even started, you can see all of these items were addressed. That's good because now if the game were to fail later on the video side, I'll have enough information to diagnose the problem. So it's just a good technique to kind of have when you develop a game. It just makes life so much easier. We'll close this, go back to the game. If you can send a clear description of the problem as well and a screenshot if possible. Otherwise, if you do have any pop-ups during the game, any error messages, I now have them in the user manual so you could reference them and determine what actually happened and what the failure is. So that's a good reference for the game, the gameplay, not so much the gameplay, but more of what is currently available for the beta release. I also have options. This is a very important addition in the beta release, which the alpha kind of failed on a little bit. This will let you pretty much tweak the entire game, everything from the difficulty, the movement modifier. You can enable and disable the sky. There's just so many options here that you can go through. For the debuggers, make sure this is kept at number 6 in case you do encounter a bug. If it's not kept at number 6, then what will happen is the log file will not populate during runtime, and I will not have that information if you do come across the bug. If you're having issues moving in the game, you can change your turn sensitivity here. If you don't like your options, I added a restore and save default option. You can go through some of the video options here. You can actually customize your video to be windowed at a special resolution for the X and Y coordinates. Another cool thing is that you can actually set your engine alpha to be semi-transparent. So like if I were to set this to be transparent, launch the game, you can still see what's going on behind the game engine. It's good if you're monitoring something or if you're doing something that you should be doing or whatnot. I thought it was a cool feature to add. Other than that, it's just more video options, stuff that you'd probably be familiar with other software packages that perform rendering functions. Audio effects, you get to adjust the way the audio is. A little explanations of what's going on. Movement style is pretty important, just in the fact that a lot of people that played the alpha version, they provided a lot of good feedback in regards to the way the player moved around the map. They said it really wasn't a fluent, nice gameplay. So I added some additional options. So if you're a first-person player, first-person shooter player, there's keys for you. If you're like an engineer, there's keys for you. If you work in CAD or any other software, you'll be able to kind of customize the way the game is and how the input keys operate. It'll probably, not so much for this release, but for the future releases will probably be very noticeable. It's very minor right now because you're not really working with electronics. You're basically, in this version, this release, you're testing the basic game structure. But very cool nonetheless, and it works pretty well. The next item that was really important was getting controls. So now you have the option to set your own controls for the game, which is really nice. And for the bug testers, make sure you know what the control is for debug. Currently it's defaulted to the question mark, but this will allow you to bring up the debug panel and see what the game's doing, along with allowing you to enter some commands to interact with it. And network options just gives you a little information about where the server is, the default user, is the chat enabled or disabled. One thing to note here is if the official game server ever changes, I can always change it in the options. So if I save these changes and go back to the home page, typically what you'd find is this might need a little bit to update. Or actually that IP address could be already in use. It could be actually excuse me, because right now this is only a ping. It doesn't get deep down in the game yet. But if I were to set this to maybe, let me just remove this completely, like a 169.254.1.33, which usually is an IP address for a computer that does not see a DHCP IP or DHCP server, and save it. Let's see if it'll come back. Otherwise, it'll be okay. Here we go. So it does work. I guess the other one was still being pinged. So if we change servers, you can change that option there and still be able to play the game. I'm going to go back and fix that, but at least the options are there for you as you bug test and as you play. I'd be very interested to hear your feedback on it. So now let's get into kind of more towards the gameplay. So when you first start the game, if you don't have the play button, that means you just didn't register your game with the serial number and apply the free version. Excuse me for a second, I'm just going to take a sip. However, the play button will show up once the serial number is properly installed and registered. If you press the play button, it will give you some options on what you want to do to interact with the game. So I have some options here. The future is going to be for private servers where you can host and join your own games with a custom system that will be implemented that will allow players to basically change everything in the game and share it with their friends. So I think this is going in a really cool place. The other side is the official server, which I'm hosting a server that will allow clients to connect, share top scores, work together, collaborate, share money, funds, things like that, and be able to chat with each other, along with maybe a few other perks. For the time being, for this release, it's really geared towards around fundamentals. So we want to start in single player. I have 3 slots here for Computer Repair Simulator, so you can have up to 3 people have their own individual information. I'll say I'm going to pick slot 3. Going to give myself a name, and I want to pick a picture for me. Don't know if I'll be able to find it. Let's see here. This is in here. Kinda getting there. No, okay, so I don't want to waste too much time on that, but if you want to pick your icon or like your picture, you can upload it. It's just good for reference, like if you're online and such, you can have your own avatar. Other than that, this page will show you the name, the slot that it's in, the time played for that account, the money that the account has, and what level. Currently the level does not function, however everything else does. So in the game mode, you have several different options. Right now all of them are disabled except for bug testing, just because the other ones are not fully completed. And it's just kind of like an open-ended software, which I don't want to introduce yet. So select bug testing for the time being. Otherwise, you'll see that there's other options for like mini games, tutorials, training, random scenarios, actual scenarios, the story. You can build your own computer. You can do a custom where you can actually save and import other people's projects and play them and interact with other people. You have a teacher and student portal, which is good for the educational market. You're working with a lot of schools right now to kind of design a software package that will not only train the students, but allow them to engage within the course. So it's going to allow the teacher to basically go in and customize a curriculum and work with the client software from their students. Pretty much it'd be host server, or like could be a central server where they can all interact with, whether it's taking tests or doing scenarios that are based upon something that they're learning. So it's a pretty cool thing. So for the time being, we're going to do bug testing, and I'm going to start. So this is the actual start of the 3D Game Studio beta release. You'll see it loaded up. Got a welcome message here, basically just asking for assistance on finding bugs. This panel is kind of like a test panel I want to leave in here. It's for the level editor. So if you want to close the game, just close the game. Otherwise, you can kind of mess around, you can walk around, you can interact with the world, see if you can find any bugs. So pretty much what I did here is, let me just get the menu system out of the way. For this level editor, I want to load a map or clear a map. So when you load a map, if it says empty, that means you can create a new map. So I'm going to create a new map, just call this Garrett. So when I do that, it's going to generate a few files that actually coordinate to my new map, and then from here I can then begin adding objects or removing them. So it's going to ask me to select a model. I can go to the previous model and keep going, selecting. I'm able to move this model around, switch to a different model. I can turn it, pan it, tilt it. And then I'm going to add a few more options down here that relate to more of shaders and is it passable and things like that. So there's not much going on here for this release, but I'm going to close that down, I'm going to move this out of the way. So for the game, you'll see I got a basic environment, I got birds in the sky, I got RGB hues within the sky system. I have a cloud system with multiple layers. The sky changes color depending on where the sun's at and the time of day. The sun's a little rougher, or the moon's a little rough around the edges, but for the time being it's going to work. You have a little building here. It's going to be kind of like the central place for working on equipment. So if your player's too slow, you can go in the options and change how fast she actually walks. You can also change how fast she turns and adjust the controls. So just kind of playing here. I know this doesn't really seem exciting, but let me open up the debug. So by opening up the debug, and I know some of the screen's a little bit cut off here, so I'm going to have to move it over slightly. So on the debug, you'll see that at the bottom here, I can enable and disable it. You'll see that I can view what functions and what keys were recently pressed. It's good. All this data is going to a data file, so in case something happens where you get a pop-up, you can take that data file and send it off to me, and I can review and figure out where that bug's at. Alright, so the debug panel also will allow you to enter commands by pressing the enter key. So I press the enter key, and I just want to go time, actually I want to do night now. These commands can be found in the user manual, but you'll be able to change how the game actually is functioning. You'll see I'm looking at Starry Night for the time being, and you know, it's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the time again to maybe something else, maybe time morning. Actually, it should be morning now. Okay, so now it's the morning. The sun's starting to come up, pretty cool. Change it to the daytime so we can see more. Day now. Now we're in the daytime, the sun's shining, you can see what's going on. So at this point, you know, I can talk a little bit more about what other things we can test. So this is your profile panel. You can move this around the screen as you see fit. As you move your player, you can control how high the camera goes, you know, things like that. It's all in your control panel or in your options for your controls. So if you ever get into a situation where you're not sure where you're at, you can always press this reset button. This reset button will get your camera back behind the player and basically initialize itself again, so you're not lost. So this panel is also helpful in telling you pretty much, you know, who you are. This is a profile account that will link within the launcher. It will also show you what level the player is at. It will show you the temperature, which will affect how the electronics and the assemblies work within the game based upon the temperature. And also, I have built-in ESD. So if you were to walk, the more you walk within the game, you'll see the ESD will begin to build up. Now, we all know that ESD is very bad for electronics and circuits. So if you're working with electronics, always make sure that you don't have an ESD built up. They got the wrist straps and some other methods to diffuse that. We're going to incorporate this into the game, so it's going to kind of teach people about ESD. And as a matter of fact, if the ESD is too high, you will damage equipment in Computer Repair Simulator. Other than that, this panel will show you how much money you have. If you press the letter M, which is a kind of a secret key, the letter M will actually deduct $2 from your bank. So this is more for bug testers to just make sure, you know, everything looks good and they can't break the system. You know, when it gets to 0, make sure everything looks good. So I'm going to move this out of the way. There's some other options within the game that you can play with to make sure it doesn't disturb the structure. This includes weather. So in the manual, it talks about what other commands can be used to control the world. So if I type in humidity up, what should happen is my humidity has now risen to a level of 27 out of 100. If I want to keep using that command in debug, just use execute last command, click it with the mouse, and it will continue increasing that value. Now you'll see as I'm increasing it, the sky is actually changing tone, and it's beginning to rain because the humidity is building up. This is automatically controlled along with the temperature within this software, where it basically has a mind of its own, and depending on how cold it is and what the humidity level is, the weather is going to reflect that. So I'm trying to emerge somebody, a field technician, into the world to kind of let them experience different things and just good things to know. So let me keep increasing this. Okay, so now this is all increased. Got a little thunder and weather action going on here, which is kind of neat. A little bit of lightning effects in the sky. The other nice thing is you can also change your temperature. So I can do temp down. So you'll see in the control panel or the profile panel, this temperature is going to eventually drop because the new temperature is now 53 degrees. Went up by 54. So I'm going to keep dropping it. Oh, and when the weather changes, you're going to get kind of a different outcome. You can keep setting that. It's gonna come in different waves and variances, which is kind of cool. But basically, this is what I have, and this is what I'm trying to test. Interaction between the game and the game launcher, along with the installation and compatibility. So if you have any information about a bug, or you come across a bug, or you have a good idea or something you want to see in the game, shoot me an email, and that would be cool. Take a look at it and see how we can either fix it or implement it. So this is Computer Repair Simulator. This is Garrett Swindell. Thank you for taking the time to watch this little kind of video interview. Once again, just know that this game is now available as of April 5th, 2017 on the Computer Repair site under downloads. So have a look and get back to me and let me know what you think. Alright, thanks.